This is Barrie, a city constantly evolving. At any time, a whole host of pressures challenge the intricate tapestry of city government. In this series, we will explore the priorities deemed essential for progress, even if they don't always inspire unanimous applause. Join me each week for a candid conversation with a member of our city government as we uncover the stories behind the scenes of Barrie, a city on the move. Welcome to Barrie City on the Move. My name is Arif Khan and I have the pleasure of being your host today. And I thank you for joining us wherever you're receiving this content on Rogers Cable, on YouTube, online streaming. Thanks for tuning in. In this series, we have the opportunity and the pleasure to get in close with members of city government, operations, as well as community partners. And today I have the pleasure of speaking with Mayor Alex Nuttall from the City of Barrie. Mayor, thanks very much for joining me today on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me again.
And it's been about 4 or 5 months since we've had our last sort of in-depth conversation. Lots to cover, lots going on in the city. But I want to start with just one thought. We're about to enter the final year of your first term in office as mayor and council of the City of Barrie. And I thought I'd just ask you real quick, when you took your oath of office, swore your oath of office, you had, I'm guessing, you'd campaigned, you'd offered your message to the public for their consideration. They gave you the nod of approval, and I'm imagining you had an idea of what success would look like over the course of this term. As we're about to go into this last year of the term, what are your thoughts? Does it look like what you thought it would, or is it looking any different? Give me your thoughts.
Well, I think what we did during the election in 2022 is we articulated a vision for the city. That vision was pretty widespread. So if you give me a few minutes, I can walk you through kind of the different parts of it and the different ideas that we put forward and how we've done against those ideas. And before I get into the ideas themselves, I'll just say this. I think the council has worked incredibly well together, and I know that it is something that we were struggling with in some previous terms. And so everybody working well together has allowed us to achieve, I think, a lot more than I would have guessed we would have been able to by this 3-year mark that we're at this week. So firstly, the main one for me was to get the city finances, back on track. We're in a position where we were seeing our operational programming expand, staff expand, things like a new city hall, $100 million set in the budget for it. And what we were trying to do was take the city's finances and invest directly where people feel it. The end of their driveway, over at the rec centers, investing in the community instead of in City Hall. And I think that we've achieved that. And I'll demonstrate some opportunities that we took advantage of. One was fix the roads, right? Which was a euphemism for invest in the community, keep the infrastructure up, and get the city looking the way that it should as a world-class city that Barrie is. And I don't think there's a person in the city who would say right now that they want to see more roads fixed anymore. It's everywhere we go, whether it's the province doing the things over the 400 or in neighborhoods. When we sat on council together, we heard about Ward 1 and Ward 2, about how bad the roads are and were at that point. And with the exception of just a few roads left, most of the major arteries in the north end have now been brought up to snuff after being left behind for 30, 40 years. And I think that is a key indicator of whether we achieved the fix the roads or not. We also said, hey, it's wider than that. We need to get Bryan Drive done. We finished that ahead of schedule, under budget, and really wanted to see the South End connection take place. And it has drastically helped our traffic in the South End. So that's an example of taking the the culture of the city and saying we're going to invest in the community, we're going to fix the things in the community, and we're not just going to see government grow going forward. And because of that, we've seen some great results over the years with the city's finances, with our reserves. We've got some incredible people at City Hall who are working very hard to ensure that the finances of the city do in fact reflect what we ran on in the last election. There's a whole bunch of other things that we could go through, Arif, in terms of, like, if you look at the prisoner drop-off, that was something I committed to getting rid of in this term of council. We got rid of it September 11th of 2023. It is diverted over 700 people outside of our city back to their homes where they can get the help and support they need, not just getting dropped off in downtown Barrie. That was a massive issue for us when we served together on Barrie City Council. And you look at the investments in the community, and I know we're going to talk about this more, but look at the things that are happening downtown. Look at the new rec center in South End of Barrie. There's just so much that we are seeing finally come into fruition that the city has talked about for years. And if we didn't fix the finances of the city, none of those things would have been able to actually happen or take place.
So I do want to touch on that just for a second, and going back to, you used the word investment, which absolutely I'm on side with, but it also, that investment requires spending, and you've spent a record amount of money on fixing the roads. How do you balance, how does council and staff balance that expenditure as an investment and still manage to maintain healthy reserves and a strong fiscal position?
I think it's a number of things. First of all, folks at home will recognize that when the city is investing in the infrastructure that's around the city, whether it's the roads or maybe it's buildings that are becoming out of date, or the infrastructure inside of those buildings is becoming out of date, when we make those investments, what we're actually doing is we're reducing the infrastructure deficit for the city of Barrie. While we're reducing the infrastructure deficit of the city of Barrie, certainly it takes money to do that. But what we're actually doing is moving the city's financial position ahead versus taking tax dollars and just adding more staff and more programs. And that has been the key to our success over the last number of years. We've been very prudent with where we've invested and how we've invested, and that's why we've seen our credit rating continue to rise year after year. And that's why we're also seeing the reduction in actual debt. We're paying down debt while investing in infrastructure, and it's just had a very, very, very positive effect on the city of Barrie as a whole.
So I'll ask you this, did it take some convincing of staff? Because there was a school of thought previous, which was, how much longer can we stretch this? Let's kick this ball down down to the next term of council, or whatever it may be. And I think we all know prices have not gone down. Right. So when you defer something, it's just going to be more expensive later.
Agreed. I mean, we've had some, very big wins, and I'll give you the example. Our revenue side, that's how much money we're bringing in, has been very healthy from the provincial and federal governments. I've maintained very, very good relationships with our federal counterparts and our provincial counterparts. Not easy to do, two different political parties, but those relationships that I built in Ottawa and have certainly built in Toronto have paid massive dividends. The Housing Accelerator Fund, $26.4 million from the federal government over 4 years, a massive help to the city of Barrie. We've also seen the money for housing from the province. And then the other piece is the infrastructure projects that we were asking for support that were massive pieces inside of our capital plan. We've seen investments by the province, $34.5 million down Huronia Road and across Mackay. That'll open up the industrial land in the South End. That's a $60 million project, and we've received $35 million from the province. By having those positive relationships, both with our local MPPs who've been fighting for that, as well as with the centre in the Premier's office and the ministers, it's allowed us to be able to take what should have been a liability on our books and turn it into a smaller investment for us with a massive potential outcome in terms of industrial tax base that'll open up there. The other one's down Mapleview Drive, another $18.5 million that the province put in. And so what we've been able to do really is control our spending on the operation side, get more revenue from the province so that we can move the city forward. And as you know, we basically went and we took the what was going up in taxes each and every year and on the operating side, and really tried to say, okay, we're going to take the capital levy, and that's where we're going to focus so that we can meet the day on all of these projects, including things like recreation centers.
So that is a ton that you've covered in just a few minutes, and I imagine that there's still work to be done. We'll certainly get into some of that later on in one of the upcoming segments. But is there something that's sort of sticking out to you as a bit of a thorn that you just haven't been able to sort of crack that case yet?
Well, I think the thing that sticks out to me more than anything is what we've seen in homelessness, what we've seen in opioid addictions, fentanyl addiction is something that is just so severe. And it's something that Barrie has wrestled with for 7 or 8 years now, right? Certainly when I was a member of Parliament in 2018, I'd asked the federal government to declare a state of emergency. I asked the municipal government to declare a state of emergency. And this is now, 7 years on, and we're still dealing with this issue because there wasn't investment in the right areas. Like, there was focuses on the wrong things. And so as a municipality, we're never going to be able to make up for a bad bail system, a mental health act that doesn't allow us to help individuals, and a lack of funding into mental health and rehabilitation. The idea that somehow a municipality can make up for a flawed justice system and a flawed health system is just not reasonable. And that's why it's not just the city of Barrie, it's Oshawa, it's Kingston, it's London, it's Windsor, it's Toronto, it's every major center, Ottawa, that are facing these issues because there has been a lack of regulation inside the justice system to allow for normal standards to be adhered to when it comes to bail and to sentencing. And there has been a lack of investment in our mental health over the years across the country. And certainly I think that when you're looking at the Mental Health Act and the reform that we need there, compassionate care will go a long way. But I would say that is the challenge that we're trying to meet that was unexpectedly stronger than I had known. And certainly when I look at the encampments and how deep-rooted they are for a decade, they have been far more difficult to deal with than we expected, and that's why we took the very serious actions that we've taken.
So speaking of the very serious actions, you actually, I believe, were certainly the first in Ontario to set the precedent about declaring and having council declare a state of emergency. Since then, it has actually sort of inspired other municipalities to follow suit. Not all. There are some that have chosen not to. What was the difference maker there?
Well, as I said, this is something that I requested 7 years ago, right? Was that the City of Barrie declare a state of emergency. At that point, we didn't have as severe an issue with the encampments, although there was 3 full-time encampments at that point, and large ones. They're the large ones we're still trying to unroot to this day. But we didn't take the fentanyl crisis and the opioid crisis and the car fentanyl crisis, which is actually an emergency. We didn't take it seriously enough. There were serious actions in terms of the direction the city was taking was towards putting in an injection site. And what I was calling for back then was to take the direction of putting in a rehabilitation center. And if you fast forward 7 years, the data coming out of injection sites is atrocious. The crime inside, the crime around, the number of victims created both inside and around them, the theft, the assaults, the sexual assaults, all this data is going up around them. And what we didn't see was an investment on the national stage of rehab across the country. And if you track this emergency, it started in Vancouver, and you can literally take the Trans-Canada Highway and you can watch it go from municipality to municipality to municipality, going east from west. And Barrie, you know, we're not obviously on the Trans-Canada, but we're on a major highway that connects the GTA to Western Canada, and that's what we saw happen in 2017-18. So as I sit here today, and we're finally making major progress because we've declared the state of an emergency, and what that does, because, you know, I think it's like, okay, the city's taking it seriously. I think that's what people see when they see this type of action. But what it actually does is this. Right now we have the County of Simcoe that is over here, and we have the City of Barrie that's over here. County of Simcoe does the items for social services. It allows us to bring them together and get coordination and focus.
So with that in mind, let's just go to a quick break. And when we come back, I actually would love you to sort of explain what that partnership looks like and what those opportunities look like. And we'll actually broaden out from encampments into community safety in general, the wellness of the community that we're serving. So stay with us. More from Alex Nuttall, Mayor of City of Barrie, right after this break. Welcome back to Barrie City on the Move, and Mayor Alex Nuttall and I are having a conversation about the state of the city. And just before the break, we really sort of went quite deep into, but I think we only scratched the surface at the same time, into the conversation around what has really been on the minds of many residents, business owners, people deciding if they're going to move here, people deciding if they want to stay living here, people are deciding if they're going to invest in their business here. But even pulling back from that, you use the word compassion and compassionate care, and it's the whole topic that has really consumed many people around encampments, homelessness, drug use, mental health. Are they intertwined? Are they separate issues? And I think, as I said, we could probably have an entire conversation and an entire show on this topic and probably not even scratch the surface. But you decided to tackle it head on and do something that was truly unprecedented, certainly in the province of Ontario, if not the country, and that was to declare a state of emergency. And there's got to be a reason why you felt that you had to take that strong of a stance. And what did that, in fact, allow you to do that you couldn't have done without it?
Well, I think, Arif, if you look at what's transpired in the City of Barrie over the last number of years, it really reflects what we're seeing in every major centre across the province, across the country, and certainly through Western democracies. The idea that the City of Barrie is a place where folks can just set up tents on the side of the road or in forests or in parks and do drugs and impact those around them in the way that we've seen is not okay. And I think that what I saw this summer, what Barrie saw this summer, coming out of that encampment is not okay. You know, there's those that are inside of the activist groups that would say these communities are safe for those who are living there. They're there because of certain major issues and things they've encountered in their lives. But we know that encampments aren't safe. You know, we had a double homicide and dismemberment take place, likely for months, individuals there who were killed and dismembered. And the idea that that is somehow reflective of a safe environment is just not true. We can no longer let that narrative continue. It's not safe for the people who are living in there. It's not safe for the people who are living around it. And it's not safe specifically when you think about the encampments and parks for children who just want to use a playground.
I got to ask you this question.
Yeah.
This is something that's been on my mind for quite some time. I'm going to ask you, whether you speak for every single individual in the city or not, you speak for the people.
Yeah.
You've been elected to do so. What's in it for those who are opposing the actions and the mandate that you have set to restore order, to restore a healthy environment?
Yeah.
What's in it for those who are so vocally, and they may be in the minority, and I believe in fact that they may very well be in the minority, but they're so vocally opposed to what you're doing? What's in it for them?
You know, I don't know. I think some of it's philosophy. in the sense that it's the outlook, the worldview of the individuals that are looking at it, and we don't have to agree on that, where it's beautiful. We live in a country where you can disagree. The rest I'm not totally sure of, to be honest with you. The idea that there are folks that don't support individuals in encampments getting help, like long-term rehabilitative help. And there's always going to be the most extreme cases where the individuals are maybe beyond, getting back into society, getting a job and taking care of themselves because of brain damage likely related to drugs in many of these situations. I don't know why there is those who oppose not having encampments and instead having roofs overhead, rehabilitative services taking place, mental health supports in place. I think they would argue probably that they don't oppose that, but that they just didn't know what our approach was in removing the encampments and providing the services. And I think that brings us back to the relationship between the county and the city. That has been so siloed over the years. We haven't been able to get, I think, the right supports in place, and that's a fair statement for previous councils to hang their hat on, the sense that they were unable to get the operations of social services by the county to meet the day in the city of Barrie with the problem. And if you look at the structure of it, it's quite something, right? And I'm going off script a little bit here, but we'll come back, is that anybody in the county of Simcoe, if you look around the county, where's the majority of the services related to homelessness and social services? It's in Barrie. But Barrie is not a part of the county of Simcoe. And so we become this place where everybody gets sent. The city of Aurelia is in a similar situation to get support and help, yet we have no control over providing those services. And at the point where we saw what happened this summer, dismemberment, murder, health, environmental emergency at those places, to remove those encampments. As a city, we said, okay, what are the possible powers we could employ that will remove the silos between the city and the county and any other provider, police, fire, bylaw, all of the things, the agencies. What can we do to bring everybody under one plan? And a plan that the city of Barrie influences on behalf of its residents instead of something that's made out in the county. And where we got to was a state of emergency. We created an emergency management team. This is right in the Act. And when we create that emergency management team, everybody else falls underneath that emergency management team, which is led by the Chief Administrative Officer or the Chief Administrative Officer's designate here in the city of Barrie. And so we've got Jeff Schmidt, who's leading that. And by bringing that all together, we've actually been able to have some very, very strong results.
So there were people, and I want you to carry on with that train of thought, but there were people who had decided that you were on a mission to criminalize the downtrodden.
Yeah.
And you didn't really have.
First of all,
look,
I think our justice system is such that no one individual can criminalize somebody else. We live in a country where personal responsibility is important. I think our society, our culture stepped away from that for a number of years, and we're now living with the results. If there's criminal activity happening inside of these encampments, which we know there is, and around them, look at the crossbows, knives, starter pistols, drugs, drug money, all the stuff, right? That criminal activity has been brought on by the individuals who are doing that criminal activity. The idea that we as the city of Barrie would ever go in and start upending people's lives without helping is just not a rational thought. And in fact, when I went and had the state of emergency put in place and we actually announced it, the message was very clear. If you want help, we want to help you. If you need mental health support, we want to help you get that mental health support. If you need addiction support and detox, we want to be there to help you. If you need a roof over your head, we're going to make that happen. If you want employment services to get a job, because this isn't an addictions issue, it's a financial issue, we want to help you with that. If you need rent geared to income or supportive housing, we want to help you with that. But if you don't want help, and if you want to sit on the side of the road or in a park or a forest in a state that is full of addiction, full of violence, and certainly full of crime, Barrie's not the place for you. There are places that allow and sanction encampments to operate. This just isn't one of them.
So in cooperation with the county and other partner agencies, and I believe there's been a considerable investment, talk to me about the affordable housing strategy.
Man, this is going to be, I believe, one of the things that we look back at not knowing that we are going to have success with. You know, my background in banking and commercial banking helped a lot with this. So did our staff, our public servants, you know, going against their judgment to stay, you know, the course on the way that we've been doing it for the last 30 years is the way we're going to do it for the next 30 years. So what we did as council and Deputy Mayor Thompson moved the motion was we've said we're going to waive development charges for any project that is over 5 stories and is going to deliver 20% affordable housing. The last affordable housing build in the City of Barrie of any heft was Mill Creek, where I grew up, right? So that's how long it's been since this affordable housing has been put in the City of Barrie. And what we're seeing through that is developers are actually saying, yes, we're going to build where we weren't going to build. So more rental housing and stock's going to hit the market, just market rents. But another 20% of those units are going to be affordable units. And that is a huge step for the City of Barrie. To give you the type of numbers we're looking at, between 2,000 and 3,000 units of new rental housing and between 400 and 600 units of affordable housing hit the market. That's on top of what we're seeing over at the Coral development on Bayfield Street, where there's another 100 units, 45 of which are affordable housing, or about that. And that's on top of the county's build of 215 new units up on Rose Street. You put all this together, you know, you're talking hundreds and hundreds, maybe close to 1,000 new affordable housing units.
Now, and just for clarification, this is different from transitional housing. There are programs that are operating within the city in partnership, et cetera, with transitional. How is there a relationship going on there? Are you talking to each other about what the needs are?
Yeah, you know, one of the things I think that we need to really take into consideration is what happens when somebody's in an encampment versus how they get to where they need to go. So you'll have that first step of somebody speaking with you, helping you in advance of an encampment being removed. Our workers are there to try to find out how complex the situation is and where it's going to go. And let's pretend for a second you've gone into the Heart Hub locally here, you've gone into the detox part of it, you can now move into rehabilitation. After you're done that 30 to 90, 120 days of rehabilitation, you can move out into supportive housing that will help you move forward to the next stage of your life. After that supportive housing, it could be upwards of a year in there. So, you know, you're talking about a year and a half to get well. That's when you'd move into affordable housing, then hopefully eventually back into the market system.
So when we come back from the break, we're talking about housing, which is fantastic. Housing is always on people's mind. Let's talk about what the economy is telling us, what the political environment is telling us, what our relationship with our neighbors to the south is telling us around the ability to meet some of these targets. And let's talk about what your projections are for the upcoming year or 3. Stay with us. More from Mayor Alex Nuttall, City of Barrie, right after this break. Welcome back to Barrie City on the Move, and Mayor Alex Nuttall and I are having a conversation now about housing and about affordable housing and about inventory and about all of the pressures that sort of will dictate the pace and rate of development and also the uptake of that development. And there have been some prevailing winds. There have been some winds that have actually set some projects back. If you look at the GTA, they've got a glut of inventory. They've got projects that failed, a whole bunch of things that have really been working against them. And yet somehow in the City of Barrie, the council and staff and the development community have been working together to really make the best of the situation and address the needs of the community. You've got some interesting projects going on. Let's talk affordable housing, and let's talk why it's working.
Yeah, so I think it's been difficult for the economy as a whole. Like if you look across Ontario, we've seen a major reduction in housing starts. We've seen a major reduction in individuals purchasing housing, and therefore, it really has stalled the construction sector as a whole. Where we're seeing some opportunity is the buildings that have been talked about being built for a very long time but haven't. The YMCA site is an example where you have SkyDev working very hard. There's sites across the city that would have been in the same kind of category, like maybe they're partly done, but they're not going to finish it out because the economy's changed so drastically over the last 3 or 4 years. And what we've been able to do through this affordable housing project is incent using developer money. So the development charges that are brought in, they're essentially actually developer money until we put them into a project. And we've said, okay, we're going to allow projects that are going to hit that 20% affordable housing mark to waive the DC, development charge altogether. So essentially you can end up with, let's say, $8 and $10 and $12 and $15 million in reductions in taxes to get your project going. But what you have to deliver to market is 20% of those units falling under the affordable housing guise that is determined by the province of Ontario for each and every market across Ontario. And it's really neat. We're essentially taking developers' money, right? Mm-hmm. Borrowing it, giving it to developers who are going to provide affordable housing to the City of Barrie, and not putting any taxpayer money into it. So if I had said to you 3 years ago, hey, Arif, I got this idea, we're going to build affordable housing and the people of Barrie aren't going to pay for it, but we're going to build more affordable housing than we ever have in our entire existence as a city, would you believe me? Probably not.
Yeah, well, what envelope would you be tapping into?
Yeah, exactly.
Question, right?
And so what we've been able to do to this is we're borrowing from developers to make affordable housing happen, and the development community is thanking us for doing it, right? Because they're actually able to proceed with projects that would have been sitting on a shelf somewhere for a very, very, very long time.
You're jump-starting projects,
yeah,
but you're also removing some of that. The Minister of Red Tape Reduction would probably jump in here and have some thoughts about it as well, but you're removing a layer of that expense, those fees that burden the project that end up getting passed on to the end user anyway.
Right. We're removing the upfront barriers that are in place that are stopping these buildings from moving forward. But the other thing we're removing is the cost to the taxpayer. When we do affordable housing builds through government entities, we have property management fees every year after it's complete. We have administration fees. We have interest costs for any debt that we issue related to that production or construction of affordable housing. By going this route where the development community has to incorporate it into the buildings they're already building, what we end up with is the property manager is paying for the property management. The debt is not issued by the City of Barrie, it's by the developer or by the builder or by the property management firm afterwards, and so it's not the taxpayer that picks it up. And we have no administration fees. Those administration fees are also borne by the developer. So we're ending up with a major increase in affordable housing, and at the same time, a major reduction in cost per unit to the City of Barrie, and this is going to be huge for the next decade.
So as I am sitting here listening to you, in the very first segment we talked about some of the things that you're doing differently, and how is it that you're making these major investments? How is it that you're actually spending money and getting things done, and it still result in healthier reserves and a healthier financial position. You just described one of those scenarios, but it's actually not just being noticed by me, and it's not just going to be noticed by the taxpayer. It will, most certainly, and I trust it will be noticed by the taxpayer, but it's also being noticed by a rating agency. And go ahead and give me some of the late-breaking good news.
Yeah, well, I think the neat news is this, is that in 2022, the City of Barrie went to a AA positive or plus rating. In 2024, we went to AA plus positive, meaning that we were no longer stable in that position. They were looking to give us a rate increase again. So in 2024, we had that rate increase. And then just out of the last couple of weeks, we have been increased to a AAA rating in the City of Barrie, which is the highest rating that we can actually achieve as a municipality. And to put perspective on what that means in comparison with other municipalities, right? We're one of 15 in the country. Most of the others, except for 2 or 3, are upper tier regional governments. And obviously here in the City of Barrie, we're a single tier. And I think all the credit goes to our Chief Administrative Officer, Michael Prowse. It goes to Thierry, who has managed our reserves in an incredible way over the years, and the entire staff, quite frankly, in public service throughout City Hall, who have bought into the vision of fiscal responsibility so that we can invest in projects out in the community. And it's delivered huge.
But that's not just a platitude, though, and it's not a plaque on the wall. What does it actually mean to you and me as a resident?
Yeah, well, I think, first of all, I would like to put the plaque on the wall with the AAA rating, because I think it's the first time, it is the first time in City of Barrie's history, but that's a representation of something else, I think, is what you're saying. And it means lower debt costs. It means that when the City of Barrie comes to our financiers, to our banks, to being part of projects with provincial and federal governments, we get a lot lower debt cost, but we also get a lot more respect for how we're handling our finances, and therefore puts us into a category of being able to tap into provincial and federal funds in a way that will, hopefully continue to continue to catapult us forward in being fiscally responsible and getting projects done in the community.
Mm-hmm. So any healthy community is a balance of quality of life, the ability to live there, the ability to afford purchasing a home or renting a unit, and then it's, of course, do you invest as an entrepreneur or as a sole proprietor in the community that you live in, or do you work for a company that's invested in that community? And that's all part of the sort of the healthy balance and homeostasis, if you want to call it that. Land use planning is a major factor. For a decade, the county and the City of Barrie have talked about these targets about building units that are affordable. You're talking about the major step towards fulfilling those goals and, in fact, exceeding those goals. Now let's talk about the other conversation that we're having around the growth of the city. Obviously, there's pressures to the north and to the south in terms of land use and maybe moving boundaries. That's obviously been in the news at the county level and with Springwater and Oromodante. Where are we, and how are you meeting the objectives there? And I know it's fractious and et cetera. You're smiling. Go ahead.
Well, we're in the City of Barrie, and the City of Barrie is a place that I think is really the economic engine of Simcoe County. Geographically, we sit in Simcoe County. Governance-wise, we don't, so I don't want to confuse viewers who will think, well, you just said we're not in Simcoe County. But it's quite an interesting conversation we've had, because what started out as a request by our council, by myself, to have more industrial land set aside, and I'll explain why very quickly. We had like 170, 180 acres of industrial land start getting developed last year. We only have about 500 acres more altogether. If that continues, you're talking about 3 or 4 years of inventory, and then we're going to be out. So we need to get more industrial land. And what I think has transpired over that time period is we're starting to see other municipalities recognize this need, but then say, but we don't want it to be in Barrie because we want it to be out in, whatever municipality in Simcoe County they want it to be out in. And I firmly believe that the jobs need to happen inside of the City of Barrie. And they need to happen for a number of reasons: transit, water, wastewater, the ability to access Georgian College, Lakehead University. Barrie's the place where all these things collide, and it makes for good service and very efficient use of land and use of tax dollars. And so
I just want to jump in. I want to cut you off there just for a second. I'm not hearing a lot of ego. And I think that's been the battle is a battle of egos potentially. And you're telling me it's about the water, and it's about the transit, it's about the infrastructure.
Yeah, well, it's about dollars and cents, right? Like, how do we use the people's money, right, to create jobs and housing in the most effective and efficient way possible? Well, we've already built a lot of the infrastructure in the city of Barrie that isn't out in the surrounding areas. And so, I am so inspired by the future of the city of Barrie. I'm so excited about the future of the city of Barrie because for 30 years we've invested in water and wastewater. We've run out of land for industrial land. Some of that's our own fault, and some of it is a verdict of growth, and therefore you need more. But I think the reality is where we stand today is Barrie is just so uniquely positioned to be the place where jobs come. And we're going to have some great announcements coming up on that front. But we are at the end of our industrial supply. That's why industrial land's gone from $250,000 in 2017 upwards to $2 million an acre 8 years later. So 8 years later, 8 times the cost, the value. That's because we don't have the proper supply in place.
So with that in mind, I think it's a great place to pause. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, you already expressed your enthusiasm and your excitement for the future of Barrie. I'm going to actually ask you what's on deck, what can we expect coming down the pipe in the next year, and maybe as we forecast into what you might want to do if you were given the chance to come back and serve the city of Barrie. So we'll be right back with more from Mayor Alex Nettle right after this break. Welcome back to Barrie City on the Move, and Mayor Alex Nettle and I are having a conversation on the state of the city of Barrie and the partner relationships with the county as well as other service providers. And one of the things that really stands out to me is the mayor and council's determination to tackle the issues head on, to tackle the issues in a way that is collaborative in light of and in spite of some of the headwinds and challenges that face, regardless of the topic, whether it's affordable housing, community safety, the fentanyl crisis, homelessness and encampments, as well as economic growth for the city of Barrie. And so, Mayor, I want to pick up on that, and I really want to talk to you about not only what have you done, but how has that laid the groundwork for what you see coming forward. And you mentioned before the break there are a number of announcements that are going to be coming out in the next few weeks. Obviously, there's been some buy-in from stakeholders that I think you might say is a little bit unique, sort of going against the grain of what we're seeing in some other municipalities. It has to do with the collaborative effort that you've got, the buy-in from senior levels of government, our members of provincial parliament, members of parliament, as well as your staff and county partners. How is it that you've got this this engagement, and what do you see forecasted the next year?
Well, I think one of my favorite verses is where there's no vision, the people will perish. And so the flip side of that is where there is vision, you will have success. And that's what we're seeing in the city of Barrie right now. That's what we're seeing with our relationships with those at other levels of government. They're not always easy, but they're direct. And we've set out a very clear path and vision for the city of Barrie that other levels of government, whether it's the county on a more localized government, or the province or the federal government, have bought into where we're going as a city. And so when we took office and were sworn in this term, we talked about the coming Performing Arts Centre and just didn't have a way to pay for it. We talked about the new rec centre in the South End that would come eventually. We didn't have a way to pay for it. We wanted Georgian College to be downtown in a more meaningful way, to provide that vibrant daytime life that downtown needs, but we didn't really have a way to pay for it. We talked about having a university in the city of Barrie, but there was no way to pay for it. And we also have been asking for years and years and years for a regional innovation center to come to the city of Barrie. The province is the one that controls the pen on that. And unfortunately, we just didn't have a successful vision that was bought into by the province. You fast forward now, after 3 out of 4 years of this term complete, and because we've been able to really work on the finances of the City of Barrie and drive down the infrastructure deficit and reduce the amount of debt the City of Barrie has. What that's done, because all the public servants and all the politicians are working together, is it's put us in this very unique scenario. And I think it's really important to look at why I'm so excited and why council's so excited and why the public's excited about the future of the City of Barrie. We have a Georgian College that's moving into downtown in an extremely meaningful way across from City Hall, upwards of 1,000 new students for downtown Barrie. We have Lakehead University, which is putting a new hub in downtown for STEM, for science, technology, engineering, and math, right below the Sandbox and the Regional Innovation Center. That is now going to have hundreds of students who are working in their undergrads and eventually in graduate studies, placed right in downtown Barrie. Right above that, literally right above that, is what was the Sandbox is now turning into the Regional Innovation Center. That obviously had a very unique view from Craig and all the folks that have invested in there. But now the province has said, you know what, we're going to graduate this from a local thing to a provincial thing, where we're having $1 million put into a center where we hope that students and entrepreneurs and governments collide, literally collide, and come out with a growing local economy and the opportunity for business to work together, government to work with business, and university and college to work with business to really invest in this local community. None of these things are possible if we don't have our finances in check, which that's what we've achieved more than anything over the last number of years. So 2026 September, Georgian College downtown. 2026 September, we have Lakehead University in downtown, training people for the jobs that we want to have here in the City of Barrie, advanced manufacturing, etc. We have the Regional Innovation Center now opening up, moving in that transition from what is the Sandbox into the Regional Innovation Center. And then we have these outside of the downtown investments taking place, like the new rec center in the South End that's converging the two ideas that we had for separate rec centers in Southwest and Southeast Barrie into one large facility where we're going to have 4 ice pads, multiple pools, 3 gymnasiums, soccer fields, baseball diamonds, cricket fields, dog park, all the stuff happening in this major location that was never able to be financed until now. And that's going to be huge for South Barrie. Absolutely huge.
Given all of these items and these ingredients that you've been talking about, do you see Barrie evolving from one legacy industry type into a new legacy, or into a new industry type?
Like, are you referring to like auto manufacturing, something else? I think auto manufacturing is always going to be a major part of what we do here. Honda is obviously a major client to many of our local businesses, but so is Chrysler and GM and Ford, etc. So I think that that will be sustained over the medium to long term. Obviously, it's discouraging when Honda announced that they weren't going to continue with the electrification plant that they were going to be building, or at least they put it off for a number of years. That is discouraging. However, that doesn't take away from all of the work that's being done for Honda and for these other big auto companies. But I think that what we're seeing going forward is Barrie's a unique opportunity for business to focus on, because we have rail with the railway we own. We have the airport the county owns and they're investing in. We have all of the water and wastewater and the transit and the college and the university now and the Regional Innovation Center. Like, it's going to be really interesting who comes here, how businesses that are local expand here, because they don't have that ability right now. See Herman Doors for details. I moved out to the 4th line of Oro-Medonte. And I think that it'll create quite an environment for industry to take place. I don't know who it's going to be, but what I do know is we have a very, very strong case to take to people.
So speaking of a strong case to take to people, if you were to go on a trade mission or to speak with international investors who were shopping, and they were considering investing north of the border or south of the border, why would you sell Barrie?
Well, let me talk about Barrie and the micro, and then we'll go to the kind of the macro, which would be Canada, U.S. The city of Barrie has a lot to offer. I mean, we've just talked about a lot of it. University, college, beautiful, beautiful quality of life here. Lake Simcoe, the hills. You know, I always tell people we've got a lake in our front yard and we've got the hills in our backyard. What more could you want? So in terms of that quality of life and a place to invest, we've got it. Performing Arts Center coming in. So you've got the arts community, the McLaren Arts Center. We've got a very vibrant arts community. The quality of life for workers and for potential staff of new companies is very strong. That's the why Barrie. You know, the quality of life for your workforce, it attracts them here. We also have a very compelling financial case why the city of Barrie. You don't have to invest in water and wastewater. We've done that. We have transit available. We are a city that has a lot at our fingertips to be able to help these job creators create jobs for our people. So I think that's the micro. The macro is that, you know, Canada is a very stable place to invest. It continues to be a stable place to invest in comparison with, you know, other G7 economies that are going through some very wild things. You know, is there things that we could do better on the national level? Yeah. Is there things that I wish were a little bit different? Yeah. But, you know, if you step back from it, you go like, Canada is a stable democracy, a stable place to invest that really, I believe, sets us apart from almost everybody else or every other country around you. UK went through Brexit. There's instability. We know what's going on in the US. In Europe as a whole, there's major instability related to the Russia-Ukraine war, Russian invasion of Ukraine. And so Canada, I believe, is in a very, very good place. And I hope that we will continue to see those businesses choose Canada. And when they're choosing Canada, they're going to look for access to the US, but they're also going to look to access to the Canadian market. And because of our infrastructure in rail, air, highways, our infrastructure investing in people and universities and colleges, our more affordable housing than we have in Toronto, although it's nowhere near what it was before. I believe these are all things that really put Barrie on the map to take advantage of Canada's stability.
So what challenge would you put out to your colleagues around the table at Council, the members of staff, as well as your partners in the provincial and federal government going forward? If you take a look at everything we've discussed over the last almost an hour, there are still the critical elements that are either going to impede or improve with regard to quality of life and the quality of life for each individual as well as the whole. What's the challenge that you have going forward for the next year?
Look, I think the challenge remains what we've talked about, which is in the city of Barrie, we need to make sure that we have the funding in place to meet the day on encampments and homelessness and addictions and mental health issues that are plaguing our streets. And if we have the proper rehabilitative services in place, if we have the proper investment in our social services, I believe the city of Barrie can do the rest to ensure that we have the safe streets, the safe environment, and a great opportunity to move forward together.
Have you enjoyed your time so far this term? You went from being a councillor to going to the federal level, working as a member of Parliament, and coming back and leading the city around the council table. Have you enjoyed the journey so far, and would you do it again?
Yeah, I love doing this. I'm not going to commit to running again because I think those are family questions. But if you're asking me personally, I love doing what I do every day. It's, all of the policy making and governance that you could wish for, and investing in a city that just invested so heavily in me as a youngster. It is a pretty incredible opportunity that I find very fulfilling and very blessed to be able to do.
Mayor Alex Nuttall, thank you so much for the generosity of your time. I always enjoy our opportunities to catch up. I look forward to you and Council being able to fulfill those goals that you have set out, and we'll definitely have you back on for an update in the not-so-distant future. And with that, I'll thank you for tuning in, for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Take care.